Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Thursday, November 3rd, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. It was a big day for the Royals, who introduced new manager Matt Quatraro at Kauffman Stadium. Maybe you saw the broadcast on Valley Sports or heard part of the news conference. We'll give you more on today's show. After the TV lights were turned off, Quatraro met with a group of reporters. He took questions ranging from what his first managerial job means to him to what he hopes will be the impact of Salvador Perez. After a break, you'll hear from the same group that shared time with Royals Executive Vice President of Baseball Operations, J.J. Picollo. He discussed what the Royals were looking for in their new manager and how the process unfolded. You'll hear questions asked by the Stars' Lynn Worthy, Sam McDowell, Vahe Gregorian, and Pete Gradhoff, along with MLB.com's Annie Rogers, Dave Scretta of the Associated Press, Greg Eklund of KCUR Public Radio, and Josh Vernier of the Royals Radio Network. Quatraro is up first, and then Picollo after a break. Let's get to it.
At the end of that, I asked about making players feel important and what that, for as much as we talk about the way that Tampa does business in Cleveland and churning talent and all of that, when that penetrates in here and players feel like they're an asset more so than an individual, that's kind of where I was driving with that.
Gotcha.
Of how you make them feel.
Yeah, I mean, that one of the first things I said in there is, you have a process for how you make decisions, and not, and JJ said, oh, you can't find a negative thing. But as soon as you tell somebody they're getting sent down, that guy's going to have something negative to say about you, right? So that's something that I'm keenly aware of. But the players that they tend to know, okay, I have options left. Those are the guys that end up being the ones that are sent out and brought back. So the message is really those are out of your those options are out of your control, right? So when you're here and you have an opportunity to pitch out here, you're pitching for yourself, you're pitching for the Royals, you're pitching for all the other teams in baseball. We're gonna do everything we can for every time you go out there. We're going to put you in the best position to succeed and work with you as if you're a 10-year veteran that's a stalwart here on the staff. So there's no second-class citizens within the team as they go out there. Everybody gets the same attention, the same level of care, and that's the best we can do.
Yeah. Matt, you've probably been in the clubhouse already today or even the last few days, but I do wonder if this brings home the feeling of, like, you're wearing the gear, you're the Royals manager, and what that means to you. It looked like you got a little choked up with your family earlier today.
Yeah, it's surreal still. The process is such a whirlwind process, and you're on the phone, and then it's inevitable. You're talking, you're in meetings, you're flying, you're going back and forth, you're talking to your family, and then it's like, okay, should I start thinking about, this went pretty well, should I think about where we'd want to live? And so your mind is everywhere. And then now that it's here, it's kind of like, okay, my feet are on the ground, we're standing here, we're talking about this, it's real. But I think there's so much work ahead in the process that we're going to dive into. Like, the emotion came out, I think, because no one person can be here by themselves, and it's those kids, whoever has kids here, I mean, they're a full-time job, and she deals with that, and it's a lot, so they're high energy, they're great, but it's, all the running around and the stuff that you miss as a dad when you're doing this job, and the sacrifices that your families make. And my dad's passed away, but my mom isn't here, so just thinking about all that stuff is where the emotion came from.
And a long way to get here. I mean, I know you're relatively young to be getting this job, I guess, but I do wonder how much you feel just in this moment, the consciousness of the road to get here. Is that a part of it too?
Yeah, I've really, over the years, done the best I can to, like, appreciate each day and, like, where I am. And even going back to, I've spent a ton of my time in New York, growing up there, coaching in the New York Penn League and all those things, and just remembering those random Tuesday nights in Batavia, New York, and a New York Penn League game, or those bus trips through the night and those things. And I think those are all the things that build you to who you are, and the appreciation for, like, and the readiness to be here. And if I was 29 and they said go manage the Royals, it would be like, that's great, but you're just set up to fail. And I think a lot of those experiences have made me feel comfortable being here.
Matt, you talked a lot about the 51-49. I wonder when you initially latched on to that, and it's pretty self-explanatory what you mean by that, but just how you that sort of drives your thinking on it seems.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been in the organizations that I think feel that way, and I think the bigger point of that is to understand that I think sometimes the narrative is you're either an analytics person or a baseball person, and I think that's far from the truth. And I think just understanding that the way to make decisions is just try to make the best decisions, even in daily life. You know, like, I don't know what's going to happen when I step off this curb, but I'm going to wait till the car goes by. You know, that's the 51. If I go before the car comes, that's the 49. You know, so I'm trying to just live life that way, but also approach baseball that way, so that the enormity of those decisions doesn't overwhelm you.
Do you remember the first time you wanted to be a manager? I know you played for a while and then obviously coached, but do you remember?
Like when the minor leagues, I felt like I really wanted to do it right away. Like, I coached for 2 years, and then our farm director at the time, Cam Bonifay, he said, I think this would suit you. I said, I like that. Like, I always, even as a player, I knew that, like, I always gravitated towards the coaches and the managers and stuff. Just tried to learn as much as I could from them, and so I guess I kind of thought I would want to do that. I never set out to aspire to be a major league manager. I thought I wanted to be a big league player, whatever that was worth. And then, like I said, like, I've always just done the job I have the best I can, and then if other opportunities came up, explore them.
Why do you think you gravitated toward the coaches and managers when you were a player?
I think a lot of it was my upbringing. My parents were both teachers, and just that curiosity, that constant learning environment, and those are the guys, like, I was seeking out information.
You came close to being a big league player. Did you?
Well, I don't know about that. I got to AAA, but
That's close.
Close,
would say
yeah.
that's
But
close.
I think I was about as far away from the big leagues in AAA as anybody could be.
Was there ever a disappointment that you never made it as a player?
Sure, yeah. I mean, you put years and years and years of dedication and hard work and stuff into something, and you want to see it through. But with all these years now to reflect on that, I mean, someone could have called me up, but I wasn't a major league quality regular player by any means.
Matt, do you feel like you take a demeanor of the teacher from your parents? I mean, I know we're in a controlled environment, talking, you're not out there managing a game, but I mean, it feels like you project that kind of calm, and is that something you think
I mean,
comes
my
from them?
parents were instrumental in the don't ride the roller coaster, like, do the best you can, prepare yourself, work hard, and then the results are what they are. If you studied enough for your test and you get a good grade, then you got a good grade. If you know you didn't do the work, then don't expect the good grade, and there's so much, like I've said a couple times, that's out of your control. So don't get too emotional when those things happen.
Especially, it does sound like that really is applicable to baseball. I mean, there really is so much out of your control. For all you think you can control, how does that affect how you view the game?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, the ball takes a funny bounce, or you're the manager, but the players are the ones that are controlling the outcome of the things on the field, and even them, like, the pitcher lets go of the ball, he doesn't control anything that happens after that. The hitter takes a swing, he controls some of it based on his timing, but who catches it, what the base runners do in front of him, he's out of control of that at that point. So it's just a matter of letting things happen.
Is that okay by you? You
have no
handle
choice,
that?
right? I mean, and I mean, I've never sat in this seat. I mean, there are obviously frustrations that happen in a game. You put a hit and run on and it doesn't work, or you take a pitcher out or put a pitcher in and it backfires. Of course, like, you're going to second guess. I mean, that's the nature of baseball, right? Everybody, I'm sure you guys will do it, and everybody will do it. That's how it works.
Do you think what the Astros did last night is kind of a pretty accurate reflection of what baseball is today? And a no-hitter in the World Series was done by 4 different guys.
Yeah.
Just want to get your thoughts on.
I watched some of it. I was not locked into the pitch counts and all that kind of stuff. The kids were bouncing around, but the general theme, I'm thinking maybe a little bit of what they're thinking. There's 3 or 4 more games to play and keeping guys fresh, and not using everybody up on the same night, so it's an all hands on deck if they get to game 7. But yeah, I don't know how many pitches he had when they took him. 97. Okay.
When you were in there, you talked about pitch usage or just, different ways to maybe improve process or development. How does that process look at arriving at, just pitch usage is literally just one example, but, at arriving at a decision where what pitches a guy should be throwing?
How do we arrive at? Well, we'll have a pitching department, coach, bullpen coach, analysts, all those kinds of guys will communicate with each other. And I think there's a tremendous amount of digging that goes into the history of their pitch usage and pitches like theirs and how effective they've been or how ineffective and which ones they should rely on. So that's like a brief snapshot of like that's taking that information, bringing it to the staff, bringing it to the player, and then applying it. So kind of a pyramid.
You've had a chance to sort of be exposed to some different organizations through the interview processes and things like that. I just wondered what stood out in your mind about here. I mean, obviously, aside from them offering you the job.
That stood out. Yeah. Well, it's just like I said in there, the thing that I was really looking for was that stability, the support. And when I say stability, I realize that this job is not stable by nature, right? Because you win and you lose. But what I was, I asked the question of them of someone asked me in there, what does progress or success, you asked that question, yeah. So I had asked the same thing of them, like, is it a set number of wins? Is it just progress? But what came back was trusting the processes that we have in place. Are we actually walking the walk of what we're talking about right now? Are we all collaborating? Is that back and forth there where, hey, the analysts can bring us stuff, but we can also say to them, no, that's wacky. Let's rework this. Like, have we weighted this enough? Those kinds of things. So I think that's where we're going to start the process of building those relationships and that collaboration. And I heard that a lot come out in the process.
What are going to be some of the things that you look for as you guys start filling out a staff and you start interviewing people to be part of your coaching staff? I mean, what is it? Background, traits? I mean, what are the things that stand out to you that are going to be important as you do that?
Yeah, people that are curious, people that are open-minded, people that can communicate and collaborate. I'm going to take the broad assumption that if you're looking for a major league pitching coach, he's competent in pitching knowledge and the same hitting and all that kind of stuff. And we'll have to round out the staff based on areas of expertise to, infield play. Damon does outfield, and so we need catching, we need infield, we need pitching. So some of those things will come into play as well. But more so than anything, I really, truly, I'm not going to micromanage those guys. We'll be talking about things, but the pitching coach and the bullpen coach, they're the managers of that area. The hitting guys, the same in their area, because the more plugged in they are to those players, the more back and forth there is in that area. And then the more of that kind of growth we get, the faster we see the improvements.
Have you talked to Tito?
Yeah.
What was that conversation?
You guys have probably talked to him. Some of it was straight comedy, and some of it, there's genuine care there. We have a great relationship. He's proud, he's happy. And, I said, I really appreciate what he did for me and what he's done for countless other coaches too. But we had a nice talk the other night.
And now you're in the same division. Now you got to go beat him, right?
Yeah, right.
Friendship
Yeah,
was
that'll
that,
be a little
obviously.
odd the first time I had seen him across. Well, we'll get to see him in spring training, but yeah.
Do you envision any pranks that he'll pull on?
Probably, right? He's pulled some out over the years,
the
right?
cash one this year.
Yeah, he had some with me when I first went back there, and so he doesn't miss much.
Skip, you talked a lot about collaboration, both in the room there and here now, and collaborating obviously with your coaches, but also you've got Salvi, you've got Bobby Witt Jr. Salvi's record speaks for itself, and then Bobby, really exciting in the game. How excited are you to collaborate with them as players? They're going to be leaders of this team and definitely, paving the way as well.
Those are the first two guys I called. I think that, Salvi stands alone, right? What he's accomplished and who he is in the community and the type of player. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the message, I think I mentioned it in there. If I didn't, I'm sorry. But the message with all these guys is that, here, let us know what you're thinking. We're going to, my vision of this is our coaching staff and our support staff is here to do anything we can to make them better. Some of it will be large growth, some of it's incremental little growth, but just to get the best out of them, we need to hear from them. You know, this is their career, and we can sit here and talk about pitch usage or game philosophy and those things, but none of that matters unless we meet them where they are and help them get better. So it is exciting, you know, and I have, you know, I said I've seen Salvi beat us up and I've seen, you know, us have success against him. I'd rather now go back to when he's beaten people up and be on that side of it and just get him, you know, especially for him to get back to the level where this organization was.
Hey, this is Blair. There are several ways to access the Star Sports section. Let me tell you about a couple of them. There is Sports Pass. For $12.99 a month, you get unlimited digital access to all of the Star Sports content, including beat writing, columns, features, pretty much everything we write. The deal renews monthly until you tell us to cancel. For $159.99 a year, you get everything the Star has to offer digitally, including sports and the e-edition. Go to kansascity.com and drop down to the bottom of the page where it says Start a Subscription for more information. Your support has never been more important. As always, thanks for reading and listening.
Somebody you don't know how it's going to go, but he was really good in his interview, and it was apparent after the first interview that he was somebody who was going to be a finalist.
When you mentioned the not interviewing the organization, I wonder if you could expand on that.
Say it again.
When you mentioned in your opening statement that you're not interviewing the organization, can you expand on that?
Yeah, I just think it's a professional courtesy. We're not trying to extract information on what Tampa does or what. You know, we interview by somebody from Boston, somebody from LA. That's not the purpose of interview. I'm not trying to, you know, hijack people's processes. I'm trying to hijack their best people. You know, so you know that's what I wanted to find out. So I think, it is something I share with our own people when they interview. Like, just understand that you'll know if they're interviewing the Royals or you, and it's important that they're interviewing you and not the Royals, otherwise it's not the right place to be. So I shared that with, in this case, Eric Deander. I didn't want him to worry about that. I shared it with the Dodgers, I shared it with the Red Sox, and shared it with the Phillies. Like, we're interested in who the person is and how he fits us. We'll figure out what his processes are if we ask the right questions, but his process is not his team's processes. They're going to intertwine somewhere, but it's more about how he thinks, and you know, I think we handled it pretty well.
JJ, speaking of that, you spoke to this a little bit, but the personality and leadership type, what was it specifically that you saw in him that spoke to that? And did we see some of that today?
You did.
Just how he's here.
Yeah, he's got a, you know, he was described, I haven't told him this yet, but he was described as being very dry, which there's a hint of that, but there's a sense of humor there as well that was very, I don't know what the right word is, but yeah, he kind of captured you with it, you know, but his ability to process his thoughts and then verbalize his thoughts was excellent. He definitely took in some of the exercises he went through. There's a lot of information in front of him. You could clearly see what he gravitated to and then how he was going to answer the questions or whatever the scenario may have been. But there's also a level of humility that I think is going to be very inviting to our players. And I do know he's going to want to seek out players. He wants them to participate in their career, not tell them what their career is going to be. And I think that's going to be greatly appreciated by our current players.
And when you add that, when you said that part about you guys making a decision collectively about pitching coach, is that unusual? Was that a request that was made up front, or did you know that before you made that?
No, that was very intentional on our part. That whoever we hired as a manager, we want to know, because we don't know who all the guys are. We have a list. There were names that overlapped on his list and our list, which is good. That's a good indication. but also needed to know his thoughts and building out the pitching department. Where does it coincide with our thoughts? It wasn't part of the decision whether or not he was going to be a manager, but he's been here for 3 days, and we've talked about it pretty extensively, and we want and need him to be a part of that.
JJ, you had good internal candidates. We all know who
Yeah.
they were, but is there a benefit to going outside of the organization?
I think in this case it is, and it kind of pains me to say that because we've been very intentional in hiring people internally. We still have people on our staff who have been hired internally. And you're proud of that because you want your minor league staff to feel like there's going to be opportunity for them to reach the major leagues in whatever position it is. In this case, it was the manager's position. So we did have good internal candidates. We interviewed Scott Thorman, AAA manager. We interviewed Pedro Raffol and Vance Wilson, and they all interviewed very well. And they all have different strengths. But after we got through that initial round, able to talk to our committee of people and what do we need. We felt like we needed at this time to get a little bit of outside influence, fresh thoughts, challenge us professionally as well, and I know Matt will do that.
What was your reaction to the White Sox hiring?
We're really happy, really happy. I had a great discussion with Pedro on Sunday morning when I told him we were going in another direction, but also had kind of a pretty good indication that he was still in the running with the White Sox and in a good spot. Pedro's a pro. He handled it excellent, as did Vance Wilson and Scott Thorman. They all did. But Pedro, if Pedro just believes when it's time, if it ever was going to happen, it would happen. And luckily it was 24, 48 hours later. He's in a great spot. So now we just got beat up.
It's going to make it interesting.
Yeah, it will be.
Just to make sure I'm correct on this, when he joined the organization in the minor league side, was that process that you led as far as hiring him?
Yeah, it was a little bit different because, and I don't remember the specific circumstances, but it was sort of a late, just before spring training hire. You're talking about Pedro coming on, yeah. And all we had available, we actually just created it because we knew he'd been a farm director. We knew he was a good baseball mind. We created an assistant hitting job in rookie ball for him just to get him in the organization. I had myself, Scott Sharp, we had been in farm directors meetings with him for years. Certainly knew who Pedro was. We're the same age. We never played against each other, but I was aware of his days at Florida State. But he's a pro. So it was just a matter of getting him in the organization. Then quickly, next thing you know, he's the assistant major league hitting coach. And that was something he mentioned on Sunday as well, how life takes these twists and turns, and who would have thought a assistant rookie ball hitting job would have led to 10, 11 years in the big leagues and a couple World Series and a championship.
Obviously it's still early on, but I mean, have you guys had any discussions as far as, potentially coaches going with him to Chicago?
I'm expecting that there will be a request or two, but we haven't had any discussions yet. But that's natural, and I would say that Tampa's probably expecting we're going to call somebody. It's natural. We'll be very professional about it. I think we're very respectful of, you're not going to decimate somebody's staff. If you can get one staff member to come with you, in this case, it'd be very helpful for both Pedro and Matt to have somebody they're familiar with, and that's something I think we'll work out. We just haven't had that discussion with the White Sox.
So how different was this manager search than maybe the one you guys did after 2019?
Yeah, well, I think because we were very external. The last time it was really 3 internal. Mike was a special assistant the year prior to that. We were very intentional in trying to really expand the horizon, so to speak, and really what's out there that could help the Royals move forward. So I think just in that regard, it was very different. Those interview days are grueling. I mean, it was 6 or 7 hours. Basically running straight through, day after day after day. But we just felt that's what we needed to do. It's an important hire. We weren't going to cut any corners, so that's why we chose to do it. So I think it was probably more candidates that were interviewed and external candidates.
Was there anything about the process? I know those 6 or 7 hours. I mean, that's a lot of different angles that you could go with. Anything about the process that you intentionally did different?
I wouldn't, without getting into what the process is, it was a little bit different than last time. The scenarios we like to take guys through, you try to mimic best you can, like game-like situations, but it's not a game. You're sitting in a room talking, but you try to. What we're trying to capture is what questions does a person ask, what is his level of attention to detail? What's in front of him? How does he utilize that information? What types of questions does he ask? And then ultimately, how does that influence his decision at the end of whatever that question may have been? Just to give you an example, like we did a lineup construction. 4 straight days we're facing these 4 pitchers, 2 lefties, 2 righties. Walk us through this, and he was able to do that. And I will say that was more at the end of the process than the beginning, but it was a good exercise just to hear what he's thinking about that and bullpen usage. And he mentioned it today. The depth is important. Using the entire roster, that came through loud and clear with every exercise we went through.
JJ, the process was so elaborate and really structured and collaborative, but I do wonder in the end if there's some amount of gut feeling in making this decision.
Well, there is. I sought out a lot of advice from general managers that have gone through this. That was where it started. I think we were here on a Thursday after our season, but I was in Arizona the next day, and I spent hours on the phone talking to general managers that I'm closer with. Give me your advice. And we did talk a lot about this subjective versus probabilistic decision making that managers, and I got a feel for teams that would be surprising, teams that you think are completely probabilistic. They're not. There's a subjective piece to this. I thought Matt explained it well in his press conference here, and there's a subjective piece to what we're doing. We graded the guys out, but we didn't know how, if the order that we weren't committed to, the order of the highest scoring candidate was going to be our choice. There's a subjective piece to that because ultimately we all got to be able to work with them. And that was another piece of advice I was giving. Whoever you hire, make sure that you can walk in that clubhouse on a 10-game losing streak and have a conversation that's comfortable. And Matt wasn't the only one. But that was when we built out that criteria. We were figuring that out before they even came in for an interview.
Did it become pretty clear early on in the process that he was interviewing you guys as well? I mean, we know he's been linked to other organizations too.
I think there was a level of excitement he had at the end of the day that I could feel. We later talked about it after we hired him, and I said, was my instinct right? And he said, absolutely. Having gone through, you just kind of you feel a partnership. When it clicks, it clicks. And he felt it, we felt it. Our group of 6 all felt the same thing I did. I was really anxious. What we tried to do was we didn't want to talk about each candidate immediately after the interview. We wanted to get through all the interviews first, and then let's go through how we felt. So I was really anxious to hear not only Matt's breakdown but the others. But it was unanimous feeling that Matt gave you that feeling of comfort.
I know over a 7-hour day there might not be one thing that stood out, but just to make sure, was there like a question that he asked or just a point that he made that really made you guys think?
Let me think. Well, again, because you saw his demeanor. He was very calm. I wanted to ask, the tough decisions, when you have to sit down with a player, feedback you might be getting that's negative. And his answer to that, he goes, look, people may see me as naive, but I'm not naive. I'm very aware of what's going on. I just like to listen and I'll take it in, but that may come off as naive, and that's what helps him deal with tougher situations. So that stood out to me.
I'm sure the pitching coach and filling out the staff is going to be front and center now for the next week or two.
Yeah.
But you got the off season's like right around the corner. Mm-hmm. Meetings are coming up quickly.
Yeah.
How do you foresee the next 6 weeks? How do you foresee the start of free agency, all of that going, and how does Matt fit into that?
Well, he'll be part of every decision we make. As he mentioned, he doesn't know our roster extremely well right now, which is not a major concern. We'll work through that. He's going to dive in. He's going to have access now to all of our reports and all the data we have, so he'll dive into that and sort of formulate his evaluations on our roster. November 15th is where we have to protect guys that are not on the 40 right now. November 18th is the tender date. So we've had meetings along the way. You know, Monday we spent the whole day talking about our roster. We have the GM meetings starting Monday. We go out Sunday. GM meetings start Monday. So that group I keep referring to will all be together in Vegas, and we'll spend a lot of time talking about our 40-man roster and what we need to do moving forward. And we did have a week, 3 days of meetings right after the week after the season with our pro scouts, and we have a good idea of what they feel we need to play, whether it's players we need to target or needs of the team. So we've spent some time on it. We just now our focus is going to be on the team and the pitching coach.
Jay, when you talked about sort of having guys be more active participants in sort of the way things go and just sort of the process and things like that, is that a reaction to what you feel like you guys maybe have been lacking, or just?
No, I just think it's the way that, I don't like using the word I try not to, but it's the way I like to work. You know, I just feel like it's a productive way to work. So, you know, when you're putting somebody in a clubhouse with 26 sort of alpha males, somebody needs to be a good listener. I think, and when we say listen, it's not just the players. You have performance science, medical, S&C, behavioral science. You know, we talk about the R&D department. There's so many departments you have to listen to. We just think it's an attribute or a characteristic that's really important. It's not reflective of what was or wasn't happening. I just think moving forward, a lot of people we're going to be hiring have that trait.
And then I guess the other part of that too is just, do you feel like that's what players nowadays, specifically talking about players, that's more what they're used to, or more the way that they're geared towards?
Yeah, I think they like to participate in their careers, in the development of their careers, and they want somebody that's going to be open-minded. So I think it's important that players feel that energy from the manager, the pitching coach, whoever it is. I mean, Matt said it well. I mean, he's the manager of the team. You get the manager of the pitchers, the manager of the hitters. And he and Alec had a chance to spend some time together the other day. He's very comfortable with Alec, but he's going to let those guys work. But putting people in those places that have that same ability to listen, players, and they want to participate. They have a thought on what they need to be doing or want to do. They need to know that somebody on the other side of the desk or in the bullpen or in the batting cage is willing to say, okay, let's try it. And I think Matt exemplifies that in the pitching coach role as well.
That will do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC production staff of Monty Davis, George Howard, Randy Mason, and Jeff Rosen, and to Matt Quatraro and J.J. Picollo for answering our questions. Hey, Morning Sports Edition was 50 pages full of baseball news, like last night's Houston Astros combined no-hitter in the World Series, also NFL and college football coverage, and so much more. Go to liveedition.kansascity.com for more information. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in Kansas City every day.